Welcome to another episode of Talking About Records. My name is G.I. Sanders from NTX Vinyl, a small chain of independent record stores in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If you're not local and you'd like to shop online, you can hit us up at ntxvinyl.com. Of course, please subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Really appreciate that. Today's topic, 5 reasons your vinyl records do not sound as good as they should. This should be pretty quick. I've got some simple stuff. A lot of this for longtime collectors are just going to be reminders. It's stuff that I continually remind myself of almost on a daily basis. And for new collectors, maybe there's some tips here you just hadn't thought of. So let's get in. Tip number 1. I think this is the most important thing that record collectors, myself included, take for granted. Maybe you don't, because you're smarter than me, and this is something you focus on every time you get a new record in your collection, right? And that is cleaning. There are a million ways to clean a record. There's different solutions, there's different processes, there's different machines. They go from $10 to $20 to $2,000, depending on what you want to or how much you want to invest in your cleaning process, right? I don't care how you clean it, as long as you're not damaging your records, of course. But the fact is, the number one thing, in my opinion, that affects sound of a record, assuming the record isn't damaged, obviously, and isn't all scratched up. Let's assume we have a record that's in a decently good playable condition, is cleanliness. Like, you'd be amazed how much dirt and grime and paper filaments and all those things affect the sound of a record. So I'm not saying you need to go out and spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on a professional record cleaning machine. What I'm saying is you just need to do something. Like, you can get some record cleaning solution, get a nice microfiber cloth as you go to spin a record, whether it's a used record or a new record. That's the important part here. Most people take for granted. Again, I do as well. Used records obviously could use a cleaning because they've been played, hundreds of times likely. New records, they come right out of the package, and you're thinking, man, this should be great. I should take it out of the package, undo the shrink wrap, put it right on the table and spin it. That's not really how it works. You got to imagine that those records that, you're pulling it out of a jacket for the first time, but it's coming out of an environment at a manufacturing plant where there is dust and there is dirt and there are humans touching it with their hands. So that record, even though it's brand new and you're the first person to technically play that record, there's a very good chance that it needs a good cleaning. So that's probably my biggest takeaway from this whole video is don't take for granted that new records are clean and ready to play right out of the jacket. Take a look at it. If you see any elements of, again, dust or dirt or paper filaments from the sleeve, like, that's all stuff that needs to be cleaned. So just a simple wipe down will get it to a playable condition, I would say, with minimal surface noise. Now, again, if you pull it out and it's very visually dirty, you may need to put some elbow grease into it. But at the very least, if you're just getting into records and you've never cleaned records, like, again, I'll pop up some examples that you can go find on Amazon or go to your local record store that may carry supplies, and get a nice cleaning solution. It's not expensive. Get a nice towel or a nice microfiber cloth that's not going to damage your records. Clean your records before you play them. Used records, new records, doesn't matter. That's the biggest thing, in my opinion, that will impact the sound. That is, not expensive. I'm not saying go, upgrade your turntable and get a whole new system to create a better sound. Simple things that can help. That's what I'm really keen on here. So cleaning is a big one. The next one, your stylus, your needle, your cartridge, those things wear out. In fact, I looked it up and it says most manufacturers recommend changing your stylus, your needle out after 1,000 hours. Like, who keeps track of how many hours they spin records? Like, that's near impossible. So this is kind of a gut feel thing to me. That's the only way I've ever been able to do it over time. And when do it, I mean, know when to change my stylus. You just have to do it by ear, honestly. If you feel that your turntable is lacking from a sound perspective, maybe it's a little noisy and it doesn't matter what record you put on, or it's just not clear, or it's a little muffled, like, that could be your stylus, and that can mean it's time for an upgrade or even just a replacement because it's worn out. Remember, it's a physical thing and it's going to wear out over time, and I think that's something a lot of people take for granted. The more you get into the hobby of collecting and the more records you spin, the faster your stylus is going to wear out. So just keep that, be mindful of that, keep it in mind as you're listening to records, if you start to hear something funny, it could be the stylus and it could be time for an upgrade or a replacement. So there's nothing that I've ever seen that's visually you can tell. I mean, it's so tiny, it's hard to get in there and with the naked eye see anything that's going to tell you whether it's worn out. It's more about what you hear from my perspective, and that's the only way I've ever been able to tell. Is just at a certain point I heard records weren't sounding as clear as they should have been or as they had in the past, and when I did replace the stylus, it made a big difference. That's something to be mindful of. Number 3, and I did kind of harken on this one a little bit, but the turntable's big. Like, right, you know, if you've only got a suitcase turntable, which costs, you know, $50 or $100, you get what you pay for, right? You're only gonna get so much out of that turntable. And that's just the reality of it, you know, until you get, again, in my opinion, until you get up, just speaking about the turntable, not the whole system, speakers, amp, and everything else, but just the turntable, until you get up to, you know, a $200-$300 turntable, or, you know, maybe $200, I'd say, you know, I've decent turntables for $150-$200, like, until you get up to there, like you're definitely going to lose some sound quality. And so if you're thinking about sticking with this hobby long term, think about the right time to invest in a turntable that maybe costs a couple $100. It will change your world. Going from a $50, $75 suitcase turntable all in one, speakers built in, going from that to even a $200 or $300 turntable with a decent set of, let's say, bookshelf speakers, that's going to be a massive difference in sound quality. I've heard that with my own ears. Believe me, I've both one of my youngest son, he is still on his suitcase player, and my other son, who's about to be 12, he went recently from the suitcase player to an actual turntable, and you wouldn't believe the difference it has made in sound. And even to him, he notices a big difference, not only in the sound, but the way the record responds, and it's just a whole different environment. So the quality of the turntable is undoubtedly going to impact sound. And again, I think there's a threshold where every collector kind of gets to a point where they realize, okay, am I going to commit to this or not? And if you think you're going to commit, I would say get to that level of, again, a $200-$300 investment on a turntable as a good maybe second step, because you're going to get a lot more value and a lot more appreciation out of your records, I think, from a sound perspective. Number 4 goes along with this. This is something I waited way too long to learn myself. Further from the turntable, obviously, then is going to be the sound system. So you got to choose some speakers. You know, got to decide if those are going to be powered speakers or if you're going to use an amplifier or a preamp. The other thing that I think a lot of people forget, and I did for a long time, is a subwoofer. It's amazing how much a subwoofer can add to your system. Even if it's a simple system, adding a subwoofer, again, not necessarily a super expensive one, but just something that adds some low end and some resonance and will really fill out the sound when you're spinning a record, hugely beneficial. I think it's a game changer, and one that a lot of people just don't realize. I've seen this on my my Sonos system where I added a sub where I stream music. That made a huge difference. And then definitely on my turntable where I spin records, adding a sub there, just night and day when you have that low end to really fill in the sound. I think it makes a huge difference. And it's one of those things, at least for me, that you don't really know you're missing it until you hear the difference. And then it's really, you know, it's really clear when that subwoofer like isn't on, or maybe you're listening on a different system that doesn't have one, and you will miss that low end absolutely. So that's number 4 is a subwoofer. So think about that. You can research. Subwoofers aren't incredibly expensive. You can find affordable ones, you know, a couple $100, even that will get you in the game and get you some good low end. So that's a big difference. Lastly on the list, and this is another one that I am continually experimenting with, and in fact, when I did my recent video, which I'll link at the end of this one, about my the tour of my listening room, I had a lot of comments about my speaker location. Speaker location is huge. It's something that I'm continually experimenting with, and it depends on the room you're in, you know, but are they bookshelf speakers? Are they too enclosed? Is the sound not getting to breathe enough? Are they too close to the wall? Are they sitting on top of something? If they're sitting on the same surface as the turntable, that can create a lot of vibration and create a lot of extra noise. You don't want that either. So speaker location is something to experiment with. I think that's the takeaway. So if you've had your speakers in one location for a long time and sounds fine to you, believe me, I'm as guilty as anybody of that, but just experiment for a little bit. Move them around the room, put them in different locations, get them away from the wall, get them off the shelves where they've been. Just see if you can tell a difference, because you may find that you put them in a certain different location and it really opens up the sound, or it adds more clarity, or it adds more bass. There's a lot that can be said for the way that the sound reacts to the environment in the room that you're in. So that's number 5, is speaker location. I think that's a really big deal. And again, an easy one that you can do and you can try, that's not going to cost you anything. So clean your records, check in on your stylus, really consider the level of turntable you're using, whether or not you could use a sub, which I think almost all systems can, and then your speaker location. So that's 5 easy tips that if you take a look through each one of those, maybe there's 1 or 2 that would help you out and improve the sound of your system. I'd love to hear some other tips. I'm looking for easy stuff. I'm looking for affordable stuff that people can actually gravitate towards and actually try out. That's what kind of my channel is all about. I'm not a huge audiophile guy. I don't have a insanely expensive sound system. So for me, I'm looking to educate myself and looking to help educate others who are getting into this hobby or who are into it, and just looking to make incremental improvements. So that's kind of what it's all about here for me on Talking About Records. So thanks again for watching. I got more videos that'll pop up right here, so definitely click through, check out some more videos on the channel. Really appreciate all your support and tuning in for another episode of Talking About Records.